Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw a cube. So to do that we're going to need just two pieces of equipment today. Our pencil, HB again, but it can be any grade pencil you want, and a eraser. This is a putty eraser that I like to use as well. Okay, now when we're drawing a 3D cube, the first thing you need to remember is that a cube has 6 faces, and each face is a square. Now, they don't actually look like squares when you draw them on a piece of paper because of something called foreshortening. Now, foreshortening is when you draw a 3D object on a piece of paper, but it is distorted to make it look realistic. So I'll show you what I mean by drawing the first square that's the base of the cube. Now, the cube base will be made up of just one square. To do that, the first thing you need to do is to plot out the corners of the square. First thing we're going to do, we're going to draw 2 dots on our paper. The first dot is going to be just here, and we can draw another dot in the same line as the first dot, but about, let's say, there. Okay, now these are going to be the 2 furthest edges of the square on the base. Now we're going to draw the corner that's closest to us. So we're going to go along the line until we get halfway between the 2 points, and then we're going to go down a little bit, not too far, and draw a third dot. Now, as you know, squares have 4 corners. We've drawn 3 so far. The 4th and final corner is going to be the one that's furthest away from us on the base. So we're going to keep in line with this, go up past the line where these 2 dots would join, and go a little bit higher, and we're going to go to the left just a little bit, just there. Now it's important not to make this gap too big. The bigger this gap is, the more it will look like you're looking directly down onto the cube. If you want to be looking at the cube from the side, you want these 2 corners to be quite close. Now we're going to join up these dots now, so keeping our pencil loose and holding from the end rather than holding at the front, which puts more pressure on the point, we're going to draw and join these lines up with nice loose lines. And as we do it, it's important that you carry the lines on beyond the corners like that, beyond the points like that, okay? Doing the other one. Now, if you miss the corner, the points of dots that you've drawn, don't worry, because this is a sketch and you're learning how to draw the cube. So do the other 2. Okay, I'm not putting much pressure down at all. So that is a foreshortened square base for our cube. Now, we're going to draw the sides of the cube now. So when you're drawing a 3D object, normally the vertical lines will be exactly vertical. They won't be leaning to any one particular side. Now, particularly for a cube, all of the vertical lines have to be parallel to each other. So what I mean by that is they all say the same distance all the way up. So if I draw the first side here, nice and straight, I'll draw a dot at the very top. That's the next corner. So I draw the other side here, and it's going to be exactly the same length as this line, and it's going to be parallel all the way up, and I'll stop at the same point again. Okay. Now those are the 2 furthest edges either side of the cube. Now we're going to draw the closest edge to the cube. Now because this edge of the cube is closest to us, it needs to follow the rules of 3D drawings, which means that if something's closer to you, it will be bigger and it will be lower down as well. So this edge is going to be longer than these edges. It's going to start lower down, but it won't reach this point. It'll still be lower, so we can still see the top of the cube. So I draw my line very gently, making sure it's parallel with the other 2 lines I've already drawn, and I'm going to stop about here. Okay, there's my front edge. Now I'm going to do the back edge of my cube, which won't really be seen when we finish our drawing, but it's useful to have in the picture anyway. So we start at the bottom corner here, which is the furthest from us. Now, following the rule of drawing 3D shapes on paper, because this edge is furthest from us, it will be the smallest of the 4 edges. So I'm going to draw up, making sure it's parallel, and I'm aiming to get higher than this line going across between these 2 points, but not too high. I'm going to aim for about there, I think. So I keep going, nice stop. There. Now, one of the important things to do is to make sure that the gap here between these 2 corners is not smaller than the gap between these 2 corners. Okay, ideally you want this gap between these 2 points or corners to be smaller than these 2, than the gap between these 2. Now you notice we've now got 4 corners here, and you probably guessed right, we're now going to join them up like we did at the bottom. So, in fact, I'm going to lower this corner slightly because I think it's a bit too high, and that's the beauty of drawing in pencil. You can erase your mistakes. So I'm going to make it very slightly lower. Now the thing about drawing in general, but also drawing 3D shapes, is that the human mind and the eyes, we can recognise when something doesn't look right, and we can then adjust it. That's why it's important to keep practicing drawing 3D cubes and other 3D shapes. So I'm going to join them up, keeping my pencil nice and loose. Now as we're drawing this, you can probably see the cube forming. Can you see that now? There's actually a cube appearing now on our page. Okay, now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over some of our lines to make it stand out a bit more. So I'm going to go over this edge. I'm not going to press too hard. I'm just going to make them a bit clearer. And you probably see as I'm doing this, the cube will suddenly appear if you haven't already seen it. Probably when this happens. There we go. Now, can you see the cube now? Okay, now we're going to get rid of some of the background lines. We don't need them anymore. So I'll get rid of that one there. Don't worry if you can't get rid of all the lines. This is still a sketch. This is just a practice. So hopefully you can see the cube now. Okay. Now, to make anything that's 3D look realistic on paper, we have to put some shading in. So first of all, what I had to do is decide where the light source is coming from. And I'm going to have it coming from the top here, which means the light's coming in that direction. So the shadow is going to be on this side. So as you notice, we did draw those loose lines earlier, and they're going to be very useful because we're going to be drawing our shadow using those lines as guides. So starting from that edge, we're going to be using the edge of our pencil this time. We're going to draw along here, nice and carefully, pressing quite hard, and then gradually come away from there. And as we move between those 2 lines, relax your pencil until everything's faded away. Now I'm keeping my lines parallel with that baseline. Get really hard there. And there we have the shadow. Now also, because the light source is coming from this side of the cube, this face is going to be the darkest. So we can actually shade it in the same technique using the edge of our pencil. Put it nice and lightly, don't put too much pressure down, don't use the tip of your pencil, just use the edge, and keep them nice and light and gentle. I'm putting barely any pressure on the paper here. If you put too much pressure, you'll end up dominating the picture with this shaded side, and we don't want that. This shaded face. Okay, and there is our cube. Okay, so things to remember when you're drawing your cube. The first thing is you need to draw a foreshortened square at the base. Now that will require you to draw 2 corners, a third which is closer in the middle, and a fourth which is further away, slightly above the midpoint. Then you're going to draw 1 vertical line, 2 vertical lines the same height and parallel to each other, a third vertical line. It's going to be in the centre. It's going to be slightly longer than these two lines, but it won't go above the imaginary line here. And then a fourth vertical line will be in the background. That will eventually rub out, but it'll help us understand the structure of the cube. And then join the lines up. Decide where your light source is. With that information, you can then draw the shadow using the loose lines we drew at the beginning as guides, making sure you start really hard and very gradually become lighter and less pressure. Then you can do the shading on the face that's furthest from the light source. There is one more thing you can do before we finish, and that is to recognize that every object, when it's touching a surface, has a very, very dark shadow at the very base of it. And this gives the object some weight in our eyes. So we've got one dark line here. Again, with the edge of my pencil, I can just do one more dark line here. And this will give our cube some weight. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and come back for more videos in the future. Thank you and goodbye.